We are live. Welcome
Hey.
everyone to BrewIN TeaVee Ep14. Today we are with Jen from Perth. Um, and today's episodes, we're going to talk about servicing cafes with artisan tea. And I can't imagine a better topic to finish, the whole TV series because this is our last episode for BrewIN Tea Festival 2021. And a little bit introduction of Jen. So I know Jen purely because of the tea festival, and I approached her, and I'm very glad that I'm connected with her now because I feel that she is, very very passionate, and she, all the things that I'm interested about. Jen's interested about all the problem I want solving, in introducing good tea to the Australian market. I think that Jen already thought about it and already had, tried to attempt to solve it. So this is a very good, things to talk about to end the whole BrewIN TV series. So thank you, Jen, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, I am too. Jen's business is, let me, get to the right title. So her business is called Ripple Effect Tea Co. She's again based in WA, and you can find a lot of her tea in the cafes in WA. Um, and I think that some of the Melbourne cafe also start to stock her tea. There is a full list on her website about where you can find her product. But alternatively, you can also go to her website, and I'm gonna show her website, in a minute because there are some very very interesting products that she is introducing. And Amanda, say hello. Hello, Amanda. So today, firstly, I would like to talk about what you're offering to the Australian tea market, which is organic, sustainable, and traditionally processed artisan teas. But before we start, maybe we should brew the tea first, because I feel like that it's
Sure.
also, easier to talk when we are holding a cuppa.
Oh,
The
totally.
reason why we're doing this.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I agree. I agree. So we're brewing the
yeah,
white tea first?
yes. So this is the white tea we're brewing today. Woo. The artisan moonlight white, and I'm actually interested in why you send me this tea sample, because firstly, white tea is not very well known as a tea
So,
category in Australia. And secondly, moonlight white is even a newer tea, even in the tea market in China. So why did you want us to try this tea, this particular
okay,
tea?
so Kaishan, sorry, I didn't hear the first question. I'm sorry because I had I had the kettle going and I couldn't hear it. Sorry, what was the
Okay.
first question?
The first question is, white tea is not a very well-known tea category in Australia.
Yeah, yeah.
And then
So
moonlight white is even rare,
yes,
tea to be found
yeah,
in the Western world. So,
yes.
why do you, want people to get to know this tea more?
Okay, okay, that's a good question. And
Yeah.
the first thing, like when obviously when I was new to tea, and like when I was new to tea and thinking about tea right from the beginning, I was thinking about cafes, and so I was kind of thinking what is easy for the Australian market to sort of resonate with. And as I
Yes.
started just tasting teas and tasting so many teas, when I got into the white teas, I felt like although they are delicate
Mm-hmm.
and refined in many ways, they are sweet. They are inherently sweet. So
Yes.
it's a really easy one for people to love. They're difficult to not like. Whereas green tea for the Australian palate is probably a little bit can be a little bit harder to appreciate, if you're not prepared for like something a little bit less sweet or a bit savory, or so white tea to me just seemed like it's one of those things that I often say to cafes. I'm just so surprised that more people don't have white tea on their menu, because it's when I do public tastings, when I've done public tastings with just general public people and line up a bunch of teas, what the general public pick, tea drinkers, they often say they love the white tea. So to me, it's just like really easy to brew, really easy to love, and really easy to, and it goes so well with cakes or that cafe sort of menu. Lots of people sitting down to have a cake or a treat or something. It's a beautiful tea to have. And the Moonlight White is simply because my first, venture to China was to Yunnan. With Shawna, from Wild Tea Chi. And so, and we went up to this area where the Moonlight White is grown, and saw the trees. And so that was actually my first introduction to Chinese white tea, besides just having the smaller Fujian, the white teas, that are just around. That was really my first introduction to like artisan white tea, and I loved it then. And I'm really glad she introduced it to us, because it is but I drink the most of the green tea, but it is one of my favorite teas. It's so delicious.
So are they popular, in your shop?
Yeah, so they are like cafes. A lot of cafes who use our tea sell the Moonlight White, have it on their menu, and it's never as popular as
black tea.
And it's always kind of like black tea, chai, like spiced chais, black teas tend to always sell the most, and then it's green, and then it's white. But it's not the purpose to sell it as the most, right? But it does move, and people who do, we do sell it online. So, and to regular retail customers who have tasted it in cafes, who like it, and then we also get people who are real tea connoisseurs who buy a lot at once for themselves for home use, because they know this tea. I'm actually going to
I haven't. So this is my first question. Like, because we decided we will brew it Western style, because it's more closely to the theme that how we service, Australian cafes with a good tea. So I guess my question is, do you warm up your ware, or we just go straight in?
No, I don't. And I don't like if we're doing it like sort of I have two different, I think we talked about this before, that like I've got two different approaches really. And from how I brew it at home to how I might try to help people brew it in a cafe. And I don't in the cafe, I want to keep it simple, but I also don't want to just dumb it down either. I do want to, it's just that fine balance that we talked about before. It's like, we've got to keep it simple for them in the cafe, because tea is a very small part of what's served in a cafe. So it can't take up so much room. It can't take up a lot of room on the menu, and it can't take up a lot of room in the cafe, and it can't take up a lot of room on the table, because if you were to look at cafe sales, it's probably less than 5% of their cafe sales. So we can't actually request this huge investment of them, or else people won't follow it. But at the same time, we have to help guide them to, make some improvements. We can't just say, oh, well, let's just make it super simple, because then we're not really helping to progress. So it's finding that balance between the two. So any steps that I feel we can omit, I will. And keeping in mind that cafes use all sorts of water, like just depends what they have available. Some, it's a lot better than others. So so that's just like, it's also, you know, comes into mind is like, yeah, just keeping it simple. So I wouldn't normally, oh, that's a long answer to that question.
Okay. So, you know, the tea's brewing now. I actually really like how wild the leaf look. You know, because Moonlight White, even though it would be the latest white tea, you know, in China to be invented, it is so interesting. It's called Moonlight White because, you know, one side is white and one side is black. It is actually a very expensive white tea to start with. And that's why I'm like, you know, firstly, my question was, you know, are people getting this? And then secondly, is that, you know, I think I told you, I used to have a tea shop next to a cafe. And when I'm doing tasting for white tea, and they'd be like, this is just water. Like they couldn't taste it. So I'm just, you know, surprised that you said that this is actually quite popular in the cafe.
Well, they do sell quite a bit of it, and I think like there's a it is expensive, but I think like one of the things that I often do, like breaking down the costs for cafes, even really expensive teas are still quite inexpensive to brew for cafes when you work out how much per gram. It still costs less than a cup of coffee. It costs less to brew this in your cafe than to make a flat white. And most often people charge more. Yeah, when you factor in the cost of milk and coffee, and most of the time people will charge more than a coffee for this type of tea. So, but also like the other thing, like we talk about, like tea is a very small percentage of their sales. So it's not a huge, it's not a huge jump, I think, like for cafes to spend a little bit more on a certain tea to elevate their whole tea menu. I do love, how this tea looks as well. It has changed a lot from year to year. It really depends on the year. Last year, it didn't look like this at all. And
I see.
It's just, it really, because I guess those trees, you know, they're not irrigated, and it really depends on the water as well, like the rainfall, for the bud to leaf ratio. But
so I'm gonna drink this. Just want to show everyone the color. So white tea you can't really overbrew. I guess that's why people love this, because like you said, green tea, if you don't handle it properly, it can get bitter very easily.
Yeah, and that's one of the things like that I would often say to cafes is that it's very forgiving. And I feel like forgiving tea is like very important for cafes, because it's really hard to, like you said, overbrew it. You can let it sit there forever and it will still be delicious. It's not going to get bitter. That, you know, the famous, like people get, oh, is it bitter? And they get very worried about the word bitter.
There's no astringents, there's no bitterness.
No.
And there's a lot of floral, you know, note. It's so floral that to the point, I'm actually questioning that if this is scented.
If it's what?
If this is scented with flowers, you know.
It's very floral. So this year is more floral. This season's spring 2021 is more floral than 2020, which had bigger leaves and less buds, and it was heavier.
It definitely has a very sweet finish. I think that the first time I brew this, I brew it Kung Fu style, and maybe like I didn't let it sit this long. So I was, you know, I mean, I was hoping that there would be more of like a texture. It is too light for me. But I think that this time when it sits longer, you know, it's actually better, you know, letting it sit.
It's like, you know, it takes a while to get to know a tea, right? Like it's kind of like you have to you know, you can give people brewing instructions and this and that, but it really it depends on your water and how you're brewing it, and it does make a difference. And if you drink this tea over and over, you would find your favorite way to do it, you know. and it's totally different drinking it, going for the style, like you said. So how many brews did you do when you did it?
So I normally drink tea when I'm working. So I think
Okay.
that I would just keep brewing until I'll be like, okay, there's nothing left here. Maybe 6 times. Yeah.
Okay.
But then I was interviewing some other tea merchants. They said that most tea from Yunnan can be brewed like more than 10 times if you have the patience.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like
Yeah.
I'm so wasteful.
I feel like that too. I do feel that way too. And to be honest, most cafes don't rebrew. And it is difficult. I've thought about it many times, like how can you, but when you think about the cafe clientele, if you give a customer 300 mils of liquid, it's quite a bit of liquid. And most people won't sit around and want another brew. It's just not how, at the moment, the way, because we're not talking about it. It's different if you go to a tea bar that's dedicated to just tea.
Yeah, I guess that is the conflict. Like, tea means slowing down and, socializing, talking to people, or like being with yourself. Yeah. But cafe is all about fast. We need to turn this table, we need to make this much money. So how do you find the middle ground in,
I think it's just about, like, I don't put that expectation on tea that it has to be slow. I definitely have times where I'm enjoying it to myself and it slows me down and I feel that benefit. But I think there's also kind of like the majority of us do have a busy lifestyle. That's like just pretty standard, especially in people living in the city. And like we go to cafes now and we can get really healthy, slow cooked, beautiful food. Like we can get beautiful food in a hurry. And we can actually, and I just don't think that there's necessarily anything wrong with sitting down, having a beautiful meal, like a really healthy meal, and a cup of moonlight white, drinking it really quickly, having a fast meal, and having that. If that's how it, if that's how people are enjoying it, I think that's okay in the cafe environment, and it's, I guess, just letting go of expectation, because sometimes what might happen is people might really love this tea. They might buy it and take it home and have a different experience with it. And I actually find my best experience with this tea, and I do tell people, is like at night, in the evening. I love to have this tea when it's quiet. For me, quiet is evening, like when the kids are asleep, and sitting down and just, having it. I find this tea has way more flavor at night. Like it's just like the quiet brings out.
Because it's so subtle, and then when it's quiet, your senses is heightened. Then you will be able to appreciate this a lot more. For sure. So we do have a comment. I'm going to read it out for you because I know you are, jumping in with us, form. So Kirsten said that much prefer an overbrewed white tea over overbrewed, gunpowder green, because in cafe they don't have the option of taking the tea out of the pot. So
I definitely think one of the things, like that makes 100% sense to me, and it's so common, overbrewed green gunpowder tea in a cafe. One of the things,
Kirsten is also a very, very, experienced tea drinker, because, she had a little technique here. She will say that, okay, with green tea, she would drink it very quickly, leave just a tiny bit, and then ask for more water to dilute it. Totally.
It's really like when we're sort of like building cafe menus, the idea with getting them is like getting them excited about tea. And it starts with getting them excited, because once they're excited, they'll feel more ownership about how they serve it. Because serving tea in a cafe with a filter in and no way to remove it, it is bad service. It really is. Like, and it's done, pretty much everywhere. And it's not a hard thing to change. So it's, those are some of the things that I try to tell people is like, that's like a non-negotiable step. You've really got to change that step. because it's just and that's a simple change. Even if they don't change their water or their brewing system or where it comes from, if they just brew it correctly and remove the filter, that makes a huge difference, and it shows like a level of care. If I go to a cafe and you've got that.
Yeah, I think that the fundamental thing is that the person who served the tea do not drink tea. And then that once they experience the tea, then they will understand how to serve it properly. I think the biggest problem is, we don't have a large enough population that have artisan tea.
Yeah, and it's also just like, when you go to a cafe, baristas are excited about the coffee, or they are excited about the food, but they're not excited about the tea because it's low, average quality, and there's a lot of, and so if they're not excited about it and they don't believe it's good quality, then they don't put the effort required. So that's the shift that kind of needs to change. And then,
so I guess by this point we should start to talk about your background, and then before that, I just want to quickly show Peter's comment. He said that, have you tried the Camjove Samadoyo one-pot brewer with cafes?
So are you familiar with the glass ones? Are those the glass ones with the filter and the lid?
Yeah, with the button and then it.
Oh yes, yeah. The plastic ones.
The top is plastic, but the pot is glass. So the filter is plastic. Yeah.
Yes, another one. No, I have not tried those. I've thought about those. Yes, I have thought about those, and why?
But I think you're right. You need something more durable. Before we jump onto live, we were actually talking about how we want the cafe wants something more durable, to avoid breakage, and then it doesn't require a separate washer, like more investment to clean.
Yeah, and those are also, I know the one we talked about now. Sorry, it just took me a minute. They're also like hard to clean. Like they're a bit difficult to clean. They're not difficult to clean, but if you're a busy cafe, they get in the way. From memory, there's like some of the plastic on it, and like cafes are really getting, the new trend is really away from plastic. So that's one other thing. So like almost all small businesses, like even in these boxes, when you open them, it's not plastic. I think I told you that before. It's a biodegradable film, so it's not. Yeah, inside there, it's not plastic. But I think a lot of
that.
So,
no wonder they're so thin.
So it's called Nature Flex, and you can put it in the compost, and it's made out of it's not plastic. But so I think in general businesses are trying to get away from plastic. But there was that other one, Samadoyo. There was I've tried the glass cups with the filter in and the lid. I have tried those a lot in cafes, and people love the concept, and it does work well. The only thing is I've tried a lot of them, and none of them are very durable glassware. And so there needs to be a more durable, like a version of it. I've been thinking about it that is more durable, because that actually works really well, because it doesn't take up a lot of space on the table. You can bring it out, all brew, take the lid off, put the filter on, customer sees the leaves, can rebrew if you want. It also, what's great about that as well is that if the customer feels that it's not strong enough, they can just put it in themselves and brew it longer. So it gives that kind of like flexibility. So I really like that concept. Just need something slightly more durable.
Yeah, I had no idea what that is, but I'll look it up after. So I just want to talk a little bit, because on your business page, these are the few keywords that I pick up, which I fully believe in. One is organic, because everything you touch these days has chemical in it. So sustainable, definitely. Traditionally processed artisan tea, but then it just sounds like that all these elements pile up, it sounds like that it would be quite expensive, the end products. So, if Australian market is, used to tea bags and, cut up tea dust, how do we jump from here, to here? Because, at the moment, like we all sort of like trying to just push them to start having loose leaf.
Yeah.
And then, feeling the resistance, like, yeah. I'll let you answer.
I think there's like a couple different ways, a couple different factors that are influencing that. The first one is that the cost of tea in cafes right now, for low quality tea, is very, very low. And let's say 10 cents a serve, okay, for like a really low quality. And I don't even think cafes realize that. They pay so little attention to the tea because it's such a small part of their business. So
Yeah.
the first thing is that increasing, like focusing on the cost per serve, and timesing that by even up to 8 or 10 times. Even if you say to them, on average, these teas are going to cost between 50 cents to $1 a serve. Even that is not a huge leap, because that's on average what it might cost you to make a flat white. So it's not like so expensive that it's unthinkable. And also, I think because cafes, again, because it's such a small part of their business, if it was 50% of their business and they were about to times it by 10, their cost by 10, I think that we would have a harder time. But because it's really a small part of turnover, and trying to say that this will elevate your whole tea menu, it will give you something that you can be proud of, something that you can promote, something that your customers will appreciate, and you can actually raise your price on the menu if you want as well, and account for it. So I think like focusing on the cost per serve is one thing. I think also as the wholesaler, like we don't get as good a margin, and that's across the board for anyone who's doing anything high quality. Like when you do high quality food, trying to really high quality organic food, or like all the top end restaurants will tell you that like the mediocre places make the most money. So I guess it's also sort of going, well, we're going to take a slightly less margin. The cafes are going to accept to spend a little bit more. And it's just like convincing people that it's not convincing them to buy the tea, it's convincing them that there is a real tangible benefit for them, that they are going to benefit. It's going to solve some problems for them.
Beautiful. And Peter actually say that coffee will be a small part of their business if they only sold instant coffee.
Exactly. That's actually so true. So hopefully, and that's something, it is very true. And it's something that I always say to people, is that like the idea behind this is that, yes, it's a little bit more expensive, but the idea is that it's going to grow as well. Like that you're actually going to get return customers, because you actually will have somebody sit down, and it's so easy to exceed expectations with tea in the cafe
because
market.
There are so many frustrated tea drinkers out there.
So they'd be like, wow, like, oh my gosh, I got something delicious. And so
I actually want to also mention that, so Jen used to be a green coffee buyer. So you were sourcing coffee for how long?
So I worked for a coffee company here in WA, which is called 5 Senses Coffee, and they're also Australia-wide now in some other places. So they started in WA. So I worked with them for it was probably almost 10 years all up, and the sourcing coffee part was about 5 years.
Oh, okay.
So involved in that side of it.
So what made you make the switch from coffee to tea?
Well, there was a couple things. So I really enjoyed coffee, and I still have one coffee a day. I enjoyed working in coffee. But once I got into sourcing coffee, that was when I first saw tea, because there's some countries, although a lot of the, like China and Japan, I wasn't going there for coffee. But India is where I first saw tea, because some of the estates, the coffee estates, also grow tea. Like southern India and even further north. And so That was where I first saw tea processing, and actually like being in that, I'm a very like smell for me is like a big thing. I smell, if anyone
Yeah.
who knows me gets annoyed with me because I smell everything. I'm always smelling things. Like it's
I
a
want to
thing,
hang
and I
out
love
with you.
smell.
Yeah, me too.
And I love smell. I love smelling things. Like I just like, and so I can remember in India, not it wasn't a particularly like high quality tea or anything, but my first
Yeah.
experience in the dry, like where they were withering the tea and that smell, that like
Yeah.
fresh green sort of like delicious. I was like, oh, this is I like this.
I think someone mentioned that, when they're withering the tea, that smells actually the smell of the wet leaf. It's very
Yeah,
similar. Is that
it
true?
smells like the wet leaf. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's so, but there's something about this, like it's kind of like when you smell like fresh air or the ocean. It's that green, like you smell that green, the leaf, and it's sweet and it's like so it's like intoxicating. It's really really nice, and that wasn't even a particularly like high quality tea, that area where I was. So it's just that like the raw product, because one of the things that I miss about coffee is smelling the green coffee. So I love that smell as well. There's something about that green coffee. But
What does green coffee
so
smell like?
it's like it smells like it doesn't smell like coffee like what you would think, because obviously once you
Uh-huh.
roast it, totally changes it. But it
Yeah.
just smells green. There's something about green, like to me, it's like smelling mountain air or smelling the ocean or smelling green, like grassy, just fresh. It feels like
Interesting. Yeah.
But yeah. So when I wanted to have kids, and I knew I couldn't continue traveling so much, and so I wanted to think about what I wanted to do with my future, and tea was just one of those things where I kind of thought, well, I'm interested in tea because I feel that it's very similar. It has a lot of contrast to coffee, but it's got a lot of similarities as well. And I feel that there's a big gap in the market, for what I know, which is hospitality and supplying hospitality. And I also like traveling. I like the Asian cultures, and that kind of traveling to those areas really appeal to me. And also like drinking, going into a business in my late 30s, yeah, I want to do something that I also love drinking and I'm excited about. And
Yeah.
I just felt like tea, like there was so much I didn't know, and so much that like it could just go on forever. And I love that feeling of like, oh, you just never know, you just don't know everything. You're always discovering something new. So it was just like, and also I didn't want to go into coffee.
Is it because it's too competitive?
I really enjoyed working for the company that I worked for, Five Senses, and I didn't want to go into a competing business. That was one reason. But also, I just was ready for something new. Again, I felt like coffee was getting very saturated, and tea is like an exciting new market here in Australia.
Yeah. So you are hopeful about, tea being more, getting more and more popular, among consumers?
Yeah, I think like it's on the path now. It's on the way up. And we talked about it before, how coffee 15 years ago, I mean, was just, basic flavored coffee, over roasted, low quality, not ground fresh. It's come a
Over
long way.
roasted.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, dark
Just
roasted,
like
really dark
overbrewed tea.
roasted, low quality. Everything has changed. And we have, and the coffee being served in cafes is really high quality, and a lot of attention to detail and service. And
I just want to show that this is overbrewed now. I
lovely.
did that on purpose.
Okay,
Let's see what
do you
happens.
think? Let's see.
I like it better.
Do you?
Because I like strength. I like a little bit astringence and bitterness. I think it gives it layers. Yeah. So this white tea was actually too smooth for me.
Super smooth. And I know what you mean. And astringency, like when you obviously once you get into tea, then you can really appreciate astringency. and the layer that it adds, and it just like adds a new experience. Yeah, so it's good. So then you know, it's got the tea's got a cup. This tea can be like, you know, for whoever, if you want to overbrew it, if you that's the way you like it.
Yes. Or another way to do it is to add lots of leaf. That's why gongfu tea, you know, will need a lot of leaf.
Yeah, and especially with the green tea, like there's such a big difference if you do it gongfu versus like Western style. Because
I'm preparing to brew your green tea now.
Okay.
But I also want to ask you, because you keep mentioning that, you know, tea is just a small portion of, you know, the revenue for the cafe. But do you know how much coffee, you know, account for in their revenue?
How much coffee? Yeah, let me have a think for a second, because I did have a cafe and I was the I did do the accounts and I remember looking at the numbers. Yeah, I think coffee in general would be, it really depends on the cafe, how much food they serve. Because if you're just a cafe with just takeaway versus a brunch style cafe, it's going to be a big difference. But coffee would be, for us, it would have been quite a bit. It would have been probably, revenue for our cafe. It was a lot of takeaway, but some sit down. It's quite significant. Like when you think about, you know, a medium-sized cafe might do 30 kilos of coffee a week, you know. A busy cafe might do 50 or 60, you know. They probably struggle to go through a kilo of tea a week, you know.
I see. So, because I have no more big pot, so I'm going to use a Japanese Kyushu.
Sounds good. Sounds good. I'm just going to start my kettle, which I might not hear you for 1 second, but it's already warm. But once it gets, so no, that's fine. It's going.
Okay, so I'm not going to warm the pot. I'm going to just throw it in.
I can't hear you for 1 second. Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay. Won't be long. How big is your pot? Do you know?
This is maybe 450 ml. Yeah. So it would be, you know, more or less what is available in the cafe. I do want to ask though.
Sorry, I can't hear you for 1 second. Sorry.
That's okay.
I can kind of hear you, but not really loudly.
Yeah. So the green tea, this one, I suspect that is also for Yunnan.
Sorry, it's almost brewed. Okay. The kettle's very loud. I'm not so
this is the green tea we're brewing today, the Artisan Bay Hard.
Okay.
And I think that this is a Yunnan green tea. And actually, I really wanted to find a Yunnan green tea because I feel like that it has a very different profile. Like all tea from Yunnan have a very specific you know, tasting profile. And because it's, you know, like you say, it's a wild tree, old tree, large leaf. So it actually has a lot of substance in it, and it has really strong, impactful flavor. So, you know, I'm just very glad that, you know, I would say that most green tea that I find here in Australia is either the very fine one or the really crappy one. But there's not a lot of, you know, rough Yunnan tea that is, you know, easy to handle.
100%. And that's definitely why we chose this one. There's a couple things with this tea for sure. But like, I feel like green tea in cafes, so you kind of have what we talked about before, which is like majority of cafes, still the biggest sale is breakfast tea, and probably spiced chai are probably still the biggest sellers. But then when somebody thinks, I want to have something healthy, because green tea has always been promoted as healthy, people think, okay, I will have a green tea. So for me, I kind of go, this is the opportunity to really exceed people's expectations because the quality of green tea is extremely low in cafes. And the reason I think it's so low is because it's been promoted as healthy and not tasty.
Okay.
It's, especially in Western countries, it's very promoted as this is your secret to good health, kind of like, almost like a fad, like green tea is full of antioxidants and all these things. And so if you drink it, you will be healthier. But obviously,
actually, white tea has higher antioxidants.
Yes, but it's not as marketable. There's something about, maybe it's in the name, like maybe it's just green, and people like it's more marketable or whatever. But yeah, so I think it's just been promoted a lot, probably by big tea companies but obviously, so now the market is flooded with low quality, and a lot of people, if you ask them, the average tea drinker who might not know much about tea, they think that it tastes bad because it's healthy. Do you know what I mean?
True that is so true.
And they will drink it in the name of health,
Yes.
They're like making a sacrifice, which I totally like. I think good for you, but it can be delicious, And this tea actually in cafes is one of the teas we get the most retail orders from, and people saying, I tried this in a cafe and I love it and I must have it. And this is the tea I drink the most of personally. I would have one every day.
It's quite nice. So it's not like your it's not like your typical green tea that you find in Australia. So it's not like a Dragon Wow, it's very refined, high sweet.
Yep.
Like I said, this is a roughly processed green tea.
Yeah.
But the bitterness is not very high, even though I did use boiling water.
That's another thing that I love about it, because a lot of cafes use boiling water.
True
because they use it from the coffee machine,
Yeah. So by this point, I'm hearing that you are sourcing your tea specifically, for like the cafe environment.
Definitely, yeah. They have to be really forgivable and really easy to use, and also if somebody's using the hot water spout from there, because I'm not going to go to a cafe and say, you can't use my tea because you're using pour water from your coffee machine. I'm going to get them started and hope that they get excited about the tea and then think to start improving other things. I'm going to not create barriers for them. So the best way is to, and also keeping in mind when I was sourcing teas, especially first starting to source them and taste a lot of teas, I was also new to tea. So I was really thinking, what do I like? Like, what do I think is really easy to drink, really easy to brew? And I like most things. I'm very open to flavor. So, I love this tea. And this one's from Wild Tea Tea as well. Shawna helps with this. This is how I source this tea, through her. And she, so this is from one farmer. And it's also partially sun-dried, this tea. I've had
I can almost taste it because I smell it, the freshness in it. Yeah, and initially it has like a Japanese tea smell, but then it finished with the the roasty baking sort of sweetness.
Yeah, it's sweet and savory, and it's got that puffed wheat or and it's really, but it's also a really thick body. Like it's nice. It's coating. If you do it Gong Fu style and do more leaves, you'll get more stringency out of it, and it's really nice. Yeah. It's got this really nice grip to it. But you can make this tea very smooth if you want. And you can. It's beautiful cold. It's beautiful iced. It's just. Yeah. To me, it's my favorite tea. It's also the tea that makes me feel the best. Like I actually feel better. Like instantly. Like I feel mentally alert. I feel. I love it. Like it hits all the right places for me.
I like that. So I
Yeah.
also want to mention that this is just the right amount of bitterness to me, because
Yeah.
it goes in, it just on your palate, but
Yeah.
it fades away really, really quickly. So it
Yeah.
doesn't leave a nasty, long-lasting bitterness.
No.
Yeah.
No, and it's not dry. Like
Yeah.
bitterness doesn't always have to be dry. I think because I learned that a lot with coffee. People mistake bitterness for acid, or there's different levels. Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, and this tea brews
So,
well if you brew it over and over.
yeah, it brews really
And
well. It's very easy to handle. I start to get the theme now. I feel like that, for those of us who's trying to encourage people to drink tea, we are sort of, making it too hard. Yeah, so we definitely need to go for easy to handle tea like yours.
yeah. Yeah. And then once people get really interested, then and then it's up to them to see where they want to take it from there and how they can refine
Exactly.
things. The smell of this, I love the thing about this tea too is I love the smell of the wet leaves. It's very sweet. The wet leaves. It's just like so sweet.
It's very strange. It smells like a broth.
It does, yeah. And some people, a lot of people say broth.
A little bit of corn.
Yeah, like beef. Corn.
I'm gonna live in there.
Yeah.
So Amanda actually has a question. She said that what's the difference between a Yunnan green tea and a raw pour Mao Cha?
Yeah.
Do
you want me to answer it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I was asking
Shawna
this question the other day because that's a question that often comes up for me. So what's the difference?
Your camera froze.
Am I still there? Hello?
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 Yeah, so my Wi-Fi just freaked out for a second. So I'm gonna take off the Tcam, see if it makes a difference.
Okay.
I think it definitely will. Sorry about that, guys. But yeah, please go ahead. We didn't get any of your answer.
Okay, no worries. Okay. So I don't like I'm still in my tea journey as well, discovering. I was asking Shawna this question the other day because this is something that I think about all the time. Tea is interesting to me because, like I told you with coffee, like I could spend all the time at the farm learning the process, talking. But with tea, it's a little bit harder for me to really understand the process. And I was having this conversation with Shawna because this tea is partially sun dried. It's from Pu'er in that region. Why is it not Pu'er? Why is it a green tea? And he answered me, and it made total sense. And now I'm trying to think. There is a slight difference in the processing, which is that. Which part is it? Do you know?
I don't know if it's the same answer, but I would say that it's to do with the kill green process. So to make a green tea, you will kill all of the enzyme, so it will stop developing. But for Mao Cha, you use a lower temperature, and that's why there's still material in it to keep developing. So green tea will have
explained. But however, this one is not completely dried. It's also because it's like partially sun dried, and he does use a lower temperature. He does a bit of wok frying, like slow, like low temperature, partially sun dried. Which is why I kept asking that same question. So, but there was so what you're saying is what she did tell me, lower temperature. There's
another thing is like Mao Cha is it haven't fully finished the processing. But the finished product is already gone through the final baking, so it cannot change in quality anymore.
Okay. And I'm just wondering if she told You know, there was one other detail she told me. I wish I could remember it. I'm so bad with remembering stuff. I'm going to actually, after this conversation, I'm going to go back and get the answer.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
if you want me to tell Amanda, I will, because it was really
Okay, I'll share
interesting.
that.
We had a long conversation about this exact thing, and Shawna gave me
Yeah.
really good insight into this particular tea and
Yeah.
raw pour. And
I would love to go live with Sharon.
yeah,
Actually, we contacted him because you know, Jin Hong was recommending him, but I think that
yes.
he's too busy or something. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Shawna, it's a girl, Shawna.
Hey.
Shawna, you mean? Shawna?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a girl.
Yeah. I don't know which one. I just know that someone from White to Tea that, you know, Jin Hong was trying to contact for us. Yeah.
Yeah, so
and
I will find out that
Kirsten,
information and we can give it to
that would be
Amanda.
great.
Because yeah, it's because the raw pour, I don't have a raw pour on my website, but I am gonna have one soon. And it's just so different in flavor, right? It's like nothing the
Yeah.
same, but they have
Yeah.
such a similar process.
Yeah.
So it's so interesting.
But that's to do with wine, you know, making. I think the tea is more similar to wine than it is similar to coffee. That's my impression.
Tea is similar to wine?
Yeah.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, more so than
So
coffee.
yeah. Well, Kirsten said that every time I mention I drink green tea, people will say, "Oh, you're so healthy." Yeah, see, like so many.
Yeah, I think Kristen's
Unhappy
like a
tea drinkers.
minority. Like I think people really do have. It's been like a brainwash that if you drink green tea, you're healthy. It's just a marketing sort of like campaign, really. But yeah, I don't think a lot of people realize that it can taste good. I think people are very surprised. So for me, green tea is like the best tea to get people excited about tea, like baristas, because they're so
Especially
used
green
to
tea without bitterness.
yeah, well, they're used to like bitter, dry, flat, old green teas. A lot of cafes sometimes have green tea from, it'll be like Essentia made in Sri Lanka or something that is really old, you know?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree. They don't store their tea correctly, and they use this transparent plastic bag that it
of
got
course.
light damage.
Yeah,
And then when it gets to you, it's like completely yellow. And then the other day,
yeah.
I saw something. I think this is a very popular tea in Australian cafe menu that really gets me. It's the China sencha, and I'm like,
Oh yeah,
no sencha in China. Like,
yeah,
what is this?
yeah. I
Yeah.
know. Yeah, and you know, as much as China like has what I feel probably in my I only have a certain experience in tea, of course, but I
Yeah.
do find China has probably would be some of the best teas in the world. You could probably would find them from China, but you could probably also find some of the worst. There is a lot of mass-produced stuff there as well. So there's like because like tea is you know they're feeling a demand, right? There's now a global demand for tea and green teas, and so it also generates this mass production and this whole other side of it. And so
True.
we need to help people identify teas on a cafe menu and give them more identity than just China green. You can't just say this is a China green and that's it because that could be anything, right? So
Yeah.
it's kind of like, but we're doing that with coffee, with wine, with food, and so it's only natural step for tea to take that step. So it's actually not that hard to push people in that direction because it's already happening with everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do have one more question because you know we are about we have 5 minutes till the end of the 1 hour. But if you're happy to talk, we can go a little bit over time. It depends on your schedule. But before we do the last question, I want to quickly show Jen's website. And I love how she lay out, the tea for us. Firstly, I would like to mention that she has a sample bag that you can try all the pure leaf tea for $26. And it includes the white tea that we drink today and the green tea. she also, it's not taboo to the herbal tea. Like this is her herbal tea selections, and she has a philosophy, but I will let her talk about the herbal tea. And you can also try all of the herbal blend thing for $26. As you can see, they're all, organic, responsibly sourced, tea. They look really, really pretty. But what I would like to really show is actually this one. And this is a tea that we're not going to brew, but it is available on the, BrewIN marketplace. It's the naked tea bag. And I found them very interesting. And, the concept of really good. I think she mentioned that this is from Sri Lanka. And I'll let her talk about. Jen, do you want to tell us more about... Yeah, do you want to tell us about the naked tea bags?
Yeah, I'll brew one too. Well, I'm going. Sorry, I didn't hear you for a second because I had the kettle going.
Okay.
Yes, I definitely would like to talk about these. Oopsie, I just didn't hold it, and I let the. Okay.
And I just quickly want to mention that there are a lot more comments, but we were focusing on, the naked tea bag for now. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, what did you say we're focusing on?
We were focusing on the naked tea bags that you're brewing because we have a few more comments coming in. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so do you want me to tell you about the naked tea bag? Sorry, the dog was barking in the background.
Yes, please.
Okay. Hopefully he stops barking.
That's okay. We can still hear you clearly.
Yeah, one of the things that I did with coffee, and one of the things that I really loved with coffee was like new ideas, creating new relationships, and also like just I love the relationship side and sourcing tea or coffee. That's my favorite part. Like that's the part that I love the most, and it excites me the most. And so we talked about this a bit before, but like how Australians drink a lot of black tea, and I started to sort of look around like different black tea. Oh, sorry. Hopefully the dogs will stop barking soon.
That's okay. We can hear you very clearly.
Okay, that's good. Okay, cool. So just like so this tea. I'll tell you first where this tea comes from and how I got how that led me to here. So this comes from a small farmer group in Sri Lanka, and they are they are on around Adams Peak, which is the highest elevation in that area. And Adams Peak is like there's some wild tea growing there. I don't know if you read about that on my website, or if I wrote it there about the naked tea bag, that it's from the wild tea. I have to update the website. Sometimes I forget what I.
Yeah, because your cafe address still on that.
yeah, it's like I got to spend some time on there. Basically, like, sorry, I was distracted by the dogs trying to tell the story. But basically, this small group, which is Forest Hill Tea, they represent a small group of farmers who. I mean, those areas would have been commercially producing large, monoculture, large volume tea. And we know that for small farmers, and it's not a great system for people living amongst there, right? So as tea, gains this global popularity, some of these small groups are realizing that, hey, maybe we should try to make some artisan teas. Maybe we can reclaim our land a little bit. Because when you're growing monoculture teas and you also live there and you also require a lot of chemical inputs and everything, you're killing your own environment that you live in. So these guys, I came across them just by searching for wild teas or biodynamic projects or tea projects. So they are a small farmer group, and they do, and they're basically trying to reclaim their area to biodiverse farming, intercropping with spices and different things, different income streams. But one of their revenue streams is this wild tea. which comes from Adams Peak. So the farmers surround Adams Peak, and Adams Peak is like a national park as such. And the tea growing in there was old. It was planted from seed from China, maybe 120 years ago, I think.
Wow. Okay.
And
amazing.
it was actually like originally like a Scottish plantation, because a lot of the tea was Scottish or British in those areas, you know.
Yeah.
And the tea was abandoned immediately, right away. It was never really a functioning plantation. But the forest, if you look at some of the photos, has like grown, and the tea trees have become quite tall and skinny.
Like 5
because
meters tall?
Yeah, they've become they've got to climb quite high to get the leaves.
Wow.
And so they're collecting the wild tea from there, which has a bit of a different flavor, because a lot of what they would grow around would be some of the newer clone varieties, you know, that have been all through those areas. So so they're trying to make some artisan tea. So that's what interested me in it, because I like this idea of people also, they don't have you know, like China is blessed, you know, they've got the old trees, they've got the right climate, it's the birthplace, the culture around processing it. So they're, you know, I like to be a part of these movements of people who are really excited about trying something new, and also trying to bring back like an artistry or create an artistry. So that's where the naked tea bag comes from. I didn't create the naked tea bag. That was totally by Forest Tea Hill. I gave it the name and put the tag on it, and had the idea like, let's sell it and let me help start to buy some tea from you. So that's only my part. It's not a big part.
Well, is it very labor intensive to make these tea bags?
It's very labor intensive. They probably put we've gone through a couple different experiments, and you know, made them bigger, made them skinnier. Like, there's been some that haven't worked well. There's been a bit of back and forth to get it right. But this tea is much. I'll have to send you some.
Yes, please.
And there's the naked tea bag, and then there's also just the loose leaf from Adams Peak, which actually you would have in that pure tea sample pack.
Okay.
So you'll get an idea of the flavor.
Yeah, I was just, you know, wondering, how is it different to the wild tea from Yunnan? Like, you know, because obviously there's an effect of the terroir.
Yeah, it's very different. Yeah, it's not. I don't think you can compare it. I just don't think you can. I'm gonna have a sip while we're talking about it, because then it reminds me, like, yeah, it's surprising. This tea is surprisingly light. Like, it almost tastes kind of like a white. It's a mix of like a white and a black sort of Yunnan, because the Yunnans are quite mellow. Like the black, it's got a bit of that black tea flavor, but it is quite a mellow tea. Very smooth, very creamy. You know, it's it's a very easy tea to drink. I often it does have a specific. I like that it doesn't taste like Yunnan tea, because that's one of the first things people try to do when you buy outside of China is replicate Chinese teas. And I would prefer, like, that area is known for black teas. Let's like make a really good black tea, you know? Because I just don't think you can make a Chinese tea in, you know, somewhere else necessarily. Like so let's make something that represents the area, I think. So it's so, I wish I could have sent you the sample. I'm really sorry.
That's okay. I will do a review on my own channel.
Because it would be easier for you to
So for the naked tea bag, you know, after it's brewed, what does the wet leaf look like?
So they're basically, they've got it in
it still stay together.
Yeah, still stays together. They're quite large leaves, and they do they're mostly like 2 leaves and a bud, big leaves, small bud.
Oh, yeah.
There's probably about 20 in there, like rolled in. Let me see if I can.
Yeah,
Wait.
maybe put your palm, you know, this is a leaf, put your palm behind it, then we will focus better. Yeah, sorry.
No, it's okay. Hang on. Can you see it? Wait.
Yeah, okay. It sort of looked like a, you know, a wet mop. So I don't know if that's a good.
Yeah, like a wet mop. Yeah. So, yeah. I tend to, like, because it's a mild tea, I tend to tell people to serve it and leave it in, which I quite like. It tends to stop brewing. It definitely doesn't get bitter. It's kind of like a white tea in that sense. It just gets a bit heavier and fuller, but it doesn't get bitter. To me, it's very kind of like malty maple. It's a bit sweet. It's a bit creamy. And it's kind of nice to leave it in because that's part of what makes it draws attention to people.
Yeah.
The problem with this tea is that it's expensive.
Yeah, it is expensive, but then I can understand, you know, because it's wild tree, it's handpicked, because you know you can't get the position if it's not handpicked, and then you also need to, you know, manually tie it all together, and then you only can pick like yeah, the leaf of the same size will go together. So, you know.
Yeah. And they have to climb quite high, sometimes up to like 20 to 30 feet. It's high to pick some of the leaves. So because the trees are so spindly. Yeah, I'd be when you taste this, it would be good to taste the Adam's Peak, the loose leaf as well. Because I think it translates really nicely in the loose leaf. It's different. It tastes different again to this one.
Yeah.
So we get 3 teas from them. We get this one, the loose leaf Adam's Peak, and then we get some from the farmers, the forest friendly farmers around. Because and that's the one that we probably sell the most of.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess that, you know, firstly, I really appreciate, you know, today's conversation, because I feel like that I've always think about like how to convince, you know, people at home how to drink tea. But then, you know, I understand that, you know, it's really hard to influence from the top up. But if the cafe and the restaurant can influence from the top down, that's a different story. And your audience is actually cafe owners. So it's very important, you know, to find out what they need and how to make their life easier, you know. So it's a very, very different perspective, I have to say. So I really feel like I had learned a lot.
Oh, thank you.
And do you mind telling us like how many teas do you have, you know, all together in your range?
I was just doing a list the other day because I needed to update some labels. And there was 26. And that includes like all the blends and herbals and everything. And so, but so like, because I was like, oh God, 26, that's a lot. I always wanted to have only a small amount, right?
Well, some other tea merchants have 70 teas. You know, this is actually not a lot for me.
Okay, because 26 to me is a lot, but also keeping, because the main thing for me is like another thing that I feel really strongly about is fresh ingredients and seasonal ingredients, especially with tea, especially like spring teas or like and teas that are only harvested once a year. And so of those 26, because I blend some of the teas, some of those are double because I'll use the same tea. So if I think about like all the teas that I actually have, it would be, you know, like a breakfast tea, an Earl Grey, a Chinese black tea, and an Indian black tea. 2 Indian black teas, 1 Sri Lankan black tea. So there's a bunch of those. There's I'm adding a whole bunch of black teas, and then I would have the white tea. Like I try not to do 2 green teas for cafes as such, because the Bilo Chan that I have on there is from the same farmer as the ancient baked tart. 1 white tea. Like as much as I could do 3 different white teas, you know, I try to just pick the one that I really like and stick with that. So I try to. I'm consciously trying not to add a million teas.
Yes, I think that's a good call. Yeah.
It's hard though because there's so many good ones. You know?
Yeah, I agree. So what about your herbal tea? Because you shared with me before, and I was like, oh yeah, that makes, you know, total sense. You know, so in selecting and creating your herbal range, do you mind sharing with us? Yeah.
You mean like the total herbal teas or the herbal blends with tea?
Yeah, the blends.
The blends. Yeah. So we actually sell more blends than we do of pure teas. I think because I don't I normally do tastings for customers and I don't. So with the tea, like for example, we just had the ancient baked tart. For the blend, we call it Meaningful Green, is our blend with the ancient baked tart. So all of our pure teas also have a blended version. So I try to make it so that the blended teas are most of the time the blend is about 80% tea, and any herbs that are added in are organic and also organic and high quality, but also not strong flavors. So they wouldn't be like spices or things that are good. I'm always trying for the tea to be the predominant flavor, so that like, you know, and when you brew it, the blend, and then you look at the leaves, you mostly see the tea leaves. So for me, this was like an easy way to get people excited about the tea. But then by offering the pure teas as well, it gives people options. It's kind of like, well, it does 2 things. It shows that the blend is not hiding some low quality tea in there. The tea is transparent and the information is there. And if you want to have this tea as a pure tea, it is available. So that's the first thing, like because blends have this feeling of like you're hiding some sort of low quality thing in there. And, you know,
I think that's only known to people who are in the industry. I think that the majority of the people don't think that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. But you're right. But the people who would think that are coffee people. Which is a lot of my market, but you're right. The average consumer might not consider that. And but also I kind of think like the blends are just, again, like let's say the Moonlight Rose, okay, for example, it's got about 10% rose petals in there. It's not a lot, but that little bit of rose and that it's just
it lure people in.
It really does. It really does. And some people love it that way. And I try to also just like I said from the beginning, like all I'm trying to do is get people interested. And I don't want to judge what people are going to appreciate tea in stages. And also, like, I just also don't want to judge the way people are, the way tea culture evolves in Australia is going to be different. And I'm not a purist with my food or anything else I do. I love mixing flavors and having all this. And so even the blends, like I drink the blends. I drink everything that I have, but I don't turn my nose down at them.
As long as it's good quality. Yeah, I think I go through that stage where like, you know, oh, no blend. I think that, you know, I really like your offering. The only thing that makes me feel like, I don't know about that is that you mentioned Earl Grey, but then, you know, I haven't tried it, I guess.
Yeah. So Earl Grey is the only, like, I actually, when I started the business, I really did not want to serve Earl Grey. And I didn't for a couple of years. Maybe I only started recently in the last year or so. And
it's very popular.
It's not very popular, but it's not popular. It's one of those things that some cafes are just too worried to remove Earl Grey from their menu. They're too worried about the backlash. And so the suggestions I sometimes make to people is that they just have some Earl Grey, but they don't put it on the menu. And they, because to me, Earl Grey is, it's a flavored tea, obviously. So it kind of reminds me of flavored coffee 15 years ago, vanilla flavored or whatever. But for a lot of people, Earl Grey culturally, like I didn't grow up with, I'm not, English. I didn't grow up with that Earl Grey culture. But for some people, Earl Grey culturally is significant to them. That flavor reminds them of being kids, like the British culture. It reminds their parents drank it. The smell is comforting. For some people, so it took me a while to reconcile that Earl Grey is a part of the culture here. And it's not going to disappear anytime soon. And so I had to embrace it. I had to embrace it and go, look, this is my one exception on the list that I have of flavored tea. And it is what it is. And I had to just not be, because for a long time, even when I introduced it, I didn't even create a label for it. I would just help give it to cafes in bulk, and so that they didn't have to have another supplier, which would make it harder for them. I wanted to make it easier. But then I have to embrace it. It is, people want it still. And it's the only tea that doesn't taste like anything else. So, everything else you can say, oh, you can replace that with this or this or this. But Earl Grey.
True.
Yeah,
It's so, so strong. That's probably why I don't like it. I have overbrewed my green tea. I'm going to have a try, and then we will probably finish this session because we're 15 minutes over time. Yeah. It's definitely more bitter, like not as nice as before, more astringent as well on the top of my tongue. But then it fade away. So, it's still not too bad, but I probably will brew another brew and dilute it a little bit.
Okay.
But out of all the green tea, this will be the most forgiving one. Yeah.
The most
I can still taste most forgiving one to brew.
Yeah, it's a really nice tea, that one. And it's got a really interesting story as well. And it's just like a delicious, I love that tea. It's definitely my favorite tea. It has been for a long time. Delicious.
Beautiful. So I think that I can talk to you for another hour, but we do need to end this session. Thank you so much in giving us a different perspective in, how to promote, tea to more people in Australia. And I would also like to say that this is the end of the BrewIN Tea Festival, but we will have some paid masterclass, next year for the public. So stay tuned, and I hope to see you soon in some other platform. Thank you, Jen, and thank you everyone for tuning in.
Thank you so much, and well done. You did a really good job. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
I know it's a lot of work. Okay, bye.
Yeah, it is.